This is the new American media.
Hello, everybody. Hello, and happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the newamericanmedia.com. My name is Brian Engelman, and right now we have a lot of interesting stuff going on. You're listening to that song, Juice Media, Rap News 15, Big Brother is Watching. By the way, while you were all distracted with what's going on in Texas and gun control and what's going on in Boston, did you know that CISPA was passed by the House? Yeah, we can talk about that, because I think it's a little bit of one of those sleight of hand tricks, perhaps. You know, like the baby's crying, so you jiggle your keys and distract the baby for just a little bit, so it stops crying. You're distracted. So while all that stuff's going on, we have breaking news. Suspect down as gunfire is heard in Boston, sources tell Fox News. Without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in John B. Wells. He's a Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM. He's a regular guest on this program over here, and we're going to talk about this. Breaking news, yeah, you just get right into it, because it's happening right now.
Hello.
John, it's Brian with Agree to Disagree. You're live on the air, sir. How you doing today?
Well, under the circumstances, pretty calm. How are you?
Well, the circumstances in the past 25 minutes have changed. Have you caught the latest breaking news?
Yeah, big shootout. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, this has all the makings for at least a dozen conspiracy theories, and none of them are very... None of them are unpredictable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of Fox News. Bill O'Reilly was kind of tearing in. He played a clip. What's the guy's name? Dan Badandi with InfoWars. He got to ask a question about, is this a false flag operation to take more of our civil liberties away? And Bill O'Reilly, and I think her name's Juliette Huddy, they were just tearing into Alex Jones and what makes these people, these conspiracy theorists, tick and what's wrong with them. And did a whole segment on it and talking about how internet journalism is completely unreliable. You know, it's taken away. That's the hand that feeds the big networks. So obviously they don't like the competition. But yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out here with this, John. What are some of the craziest ones you've been hearing?
Well, the latest one is that this explosion down between Dallas and Austin, in the city of West, was a Monsanto-resistant firm. That's the buzz on the web.
Oh.
But here's the problem.
Okay.
I can't remember who used this term at this moment. If I think of it, I'll be sure and credit them with it. But it's an information disease. We really are suffering from information disease and communication disease, which is really the same thing. Information pretty much is communication if you're around anybody else. Otherwise, you just stand around like mushrooms. And what I mean by that is everyone is united with the people on their email list. And yet, when they walk down the street, it's very easy for them to trust no one, even though they could be walking by some of the unknown people who just joined the email diatribe. If you understand, if I'm making myself clear, we are unbelievably well connected, and yet with that old Chinese yin and yang thing, all our connectivity is serving to divide us quite handily. There is so much information coming in now about this thing. I mean, there are some guys standing around that definitely look like special ops guys. And there are other guys with backpacks that do not look like these people, that one of whom has been killed and the other one's about to be, it looks like.
It looks like they took him down, John. Apparently a woman called in, said that they did a sweep of the area already, and then they noticed that there was blood and that the door was open on a boat that was parked in their yard. They came out, about 20, 30 shots fired, suspect down. So conveniently, both of these people are now dead, and we'll never get to hear what they had to say, which is frustrating for me because I didn't want him to be Lee Harvey Oswalded. Not that I was going to believe his story or become sympathetic, but I wanted to hear his side instead of him being silenced. But what are you going to do when you're blowing things up? So it's difficult.
Brian, I hate to be the continual Mr. Gloom and Doom on these things, but
that's why I love you, John.
Well, and I don't want to be. I'm actually a naturally happy person. Usually about the time that I'm enjoying my day and strolling through a mall or something like that, here comes somebody that'll stiff arm me every time. But so it's necessary, it seems, in this society with all these people wandering around to, at least project an air of not like you're just ready to slug it out with somebody, but there's a reason that they tell you to walk with confidence. The rest of that sentence, which is unwritten and unspoken, is fewer people will mess with you if you do walk with confidence.
Absolutely.
If you walk with insecurity, you will be messed with. Well, so now it's almost like our society has turned. It's almost as though a bunch of aliens from outer space, all in different spacecraft, pretty much, just all landed in the middle of the night. Now they're looking out of their little window, scoping each other out. The amount of paranoia enhanced thoroughly and very effectively by the television media, it's having its effect.
Well,
we just got finished with the threat of nuclear confrontation with this little cherubic dude over in North Korea, Kim Jong-un.
Cherubic.
But I haven't heard a peep out of him about that. It's all about these two guys that blew up some marathoners. And I'm telling you, it just makes me just literally physically ill when I think about an 8-year-old child waiting for his dad at the end of the race to have been killed like that.
Well, I think the wife lost a limb, and I think the daughter was, or something like that. His entire family was decimated. That's not the work of any freedom fighter. That's whatever it is disgusting.
Well, there's a lot of things happening at the same time, Brian. I think it's best for everybody to just stay calm because these conspiracy theories abound, as we know. And I don't like to be a purveyor of conspiracy theories unless there's some fact. Certainly, half of them turn out to be incorrect. These theories,
right?
Of course, a theory can't really be incorrect, can it? Because it's just a theory. It is neither correct nor incorrect. It's one of those nebulous things.
It's a hypothesis.
Now
we've
picked that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we've picked up that expression, conspiracy theory, and the fact of the matter is that there are lots of conspiracies out there. I get the distinct impression that something really dramatic is headed our way, and most unexpected. I don't think necessarily it'll be in the form of civil unrest. But it just seems like, looking at the general chronology of humankind since they began recording it with any sort of intelligibility, it seems like we're really due for an event of some kind. I'll tell you what, it's just enough to drive you back to the scriptures and just content yourself with that, because it's been chaos since the beginning. They used sticks and stones back then, and we use the same things. We use sticks that have little electric probes on the end, and we use stones, which we effectively fire from our rifles and pistols and so forth. So there really isn't anything new under the sun. But it does seem as though humanity is approaching some sort of an event window that's opening.
Now, John, if you remember, we talked about that on your program over on Coast to Coast. And by the way, if you guys aren't listening to John, you got to check him out. He's every Saturday night on Coast to Coast AM, nationally syndicated, broadcast across the world, actually. But yeah, last time we talked was on National Hangover Day, December 22nd, 2012, when everybody was waiting for the other shoe to drop. You graciously invited me on for a couple minutes to talk to a few million folks. And there was a collective feeling, something is transitioning. We're entering a new phase. Is this the end point? Is it going to be doomsday? And, what I was saying was just, no, there's just going to be a lot of hungover people the next day. But it sure does feel like, for the past week, almost like a sleeper cell has been activated. You had the thing in West Texas with the huge fertilizer explosion. You have what's going on in Boston. It just kind of seems like something has started. I could be wrong, but it feels like something has started.
Oh, it most assuredly has, in my opinion. And here's the thing: I'm not going to go way out on a limb with it. If I think it's just if I think it's a wild theory, I'll just say this is my wild theory, and that's all it is a theory. But it does seem like there is a confluence of events. Let's not forget that everyone was agonizing over this big assault rifle ban.
Right.
At the beginning of the week, and then this thing happened, and this bomb situation in Boston. So we add that to it. So you've got that, and our El Presidente is not happy about this.
No, not at all.
And he's going to make a shift over to the UN and see if he can bring some pressure to bear from them. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we take orders from the UN, do we?
I don't work for the UN.
No.
And I'm not going to.
So it just seems to be, I think there's a lot of information that's really potentially psyche altering for the people of Earth. It would be, it's amazing, the more highly developed, if we could just use that phrase for a second, a society seems to be, it seems that the more sophisticated the society, the more easily it's spooked. Some guy crouching down around his goats in the Middle East or India or somewhere else will just look at you and go, forget about it. Mankind rises and falls. Everybody knows that. And that's the end of it. He doesn't spend his time worrying about it. But look at this. Ever since these bombs went off in Boston, it's just been a continual barrage of information, which is why I just hit the off button on the TV monitor. There are plenty of people out there who are reporting on this event in Massachusetts. I don't need to bone up on all of that while the theories are just bandied about, because nobody knows what. Normally, when you look into the face of a mass murderer, be his tool of trade a bomb or a gun, generally they've got that nut look in their eyes. I'm not really seeing nuts on these two people.
You mean like the James Holmes, the Jared Loughner, the crazy, that look is what you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. That kid up at Newtown, and then Holmes,
Lanza. Yeah,
they have matching eyes. You know what I mean? It's wide-eyed. I mean, they look nuts, if you'll excuse the crude expression.
No, could they have rolled off the same conveyor belt at the psychopath factory, getting cloned, just being launched out there?
Something, but you would think that some kid who was the perpetrator or about to be the perpetrator of mass murder, indiscriminate murder, just a general revenge murder, you would think at least one of them would have some dark circles under their eyes or something, unless they're just that committed that it gives them joy to kill and be killed. Well, I suppose that's possible, but I don't know. I'm not picking up mass murderers off of these kids. And why would somebody just walk up to this university policeman, security guy, or whatever, and just empty their pistol into him? I mean, what's that about? These guys don't look crazy. The pictures that we've been shown of the operatives in the Middle East, those guys look crazy. They look like some serious cats. These don't look like serious cats to me. So I don't know. Well,
you remember Christopher Dorner out here in my backyard in Southern California, the former LAPD officer. I mean, he started killing indiscriminately. Yes, he had his personal vendetta, but he knocked a couple of them off right before he ultimately went down after his initial killing. And
yes, he did.
And that's what I was worried about, John, when I was watching this on TV. And I'm glad you were able to disconnect from it, because I was up till about, 3 or 4 Pacific time, tweeting in real time and listening to the police scanner, trying to get information, hoping it was going to wrap up last night. But this stuff happens, and it's confusing. You wonder what's going on. Could this possibly be something as a smokescreen that's diverting attention away, and that's kind of what I started the program with before I brought you in, John. I was saying, it's almost like when the baby's crying, you jingle your car keys to distract it for a little bit. Maybe it forgets that it needs to cry. And I'm hearing all of my Twitter followers and the people on Facebook, they're screaming about CISPA, the internet bill that just passed the House, and it's headed for the Senate, and the president that's going to gladly sign it. This thing got shut down a few months ago, and now everybody seems to be on board. Nobody's talking about it. It seems like that was the smokescreen, and here's what you weren't supposed to pay attention to. Because without the internet, John, what do we really have in 2013?
Well, most large metropolitan areas are down to one newspaper.
Is that one too many?
No, what I'm saying is there's no competition.
Right. Just online competition.
And, well, that's true, but there is a measurable percentage of the population of this country that is not connected to the net. You would think, hey, everybody's connected to the net. No, not really. They're not. Brian, you get to the point where it's like, okay, now let's all put on our Einstein wigs and approach the blackboard and then chart out what we as human beings in this time with civilization and society not necessarily being the same thing. Where are we right now? Let's plot all of this out and see where we're headed. Remember that if you want to get into the Mayan calendar thing, that was the end of the Mayan calendar. And so look at the events that have transpired since the first of the year.
The beginning of a new. That whole North Korea thing, like you said, it was swept right under the rug. It just kind of dissipated away. We were talking about Austin, Texas, San Francisco, New York, I think L.A., a few other, legitimate, I'm going to nuke you, specific threats. And now we're all talking about, it's a horrible event, but a couple of dead people, 150 injured in Boston, and we're forgetting about nuclear warfare, which seems a little strange to me.
I think one of the reasons that Americans are perceived, this is my theory, Brian, if you project yourself a certain way, or if you allow someone to project your image or their image of you to the world in a certain way, to some degree, that becomes reality. It does, perhaps, and certainly potentially for the receivers of this propaganda, this image projection. And so when you see this, as they say, wall-to-wall coverage, what a word, coverage, all over the radio, all over the television, all over the net, you get sucked into this thing, and before long it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. However, the problem that we have in this country is that I don't think this is conspiracy theory anymore. Now, this gun bill just went down, so we're going to try and get the UN to apply some pressure. Why is that? Why is this? Because of the Newtown shootings. That's why we should disarm the country, because those children were killed. It's like, well, I got some news for you. A very wealthy multi-millionaire was responsible for a bunch of women and kids being suffocated in their little underground cellar up there in Ludlow, Colorado. It was Getty or Rockefeller, one of them. I think it was John D. Rockefeller. I could be wrong about that. I'll look it up. I should have done that before I opened my mouth, but this is impromptu, so I haven't researched this conversation. These things happen. Children have been sacrificed over the millennia. Let's go back to the scripture for a minute. Look what Herod did just on the off chance that there was somebody that could take his place. Let's just say it's a fable. It's a good fable. One king decides this guy could really threaten okay, that's it. I'd send the soldiers, and I want you to whack every child 3 years old and younger, just in case somebody screwed up when they reported his birth, okay? Now get out there and do it. And it was done. It's a matter of record. It's not a fable. It's not a fairy tale. So these sorts of catastrophes have been going on and will continue to go on. Let me just seg over somewhere else. I'll just go everywhere, Brian, as long as you just pull me back to whatever you want to.
You always do, John. That's what we love about it.
Well, let's take this UFO thing, for example. Let's throw it all out there. it's irrefutable that they exist. These aren't nutcases looking at craft. They're Air Force and Navy and Marine and Army guys. They've all seen that stuff, from RAF Bentwaters to this big download of stuff that I got off the real no kidding NSA.gov site that had all sorts of sightings of 30 craft and 25 and 60 craft, estimated speed 60,000 miles an hour, and all this stuff. And so it's, I've talked to guys who are going, oh, I was at 50,000 and it went from 50 to 100 like so quick I couldn't believe it. And it was absolutely positive. This wasn't an anomaly. This was a craft. End of story, period.
Well, and you fly, John, so you also have that background as well. You understand when a pilot's telling you about weird stuff. You've been up there. You get it.
Yeah, I do get it. And I also understand that everybody likes a good story. Everybody loves a fable. Everybody loves a legend. Everybody wants that. I mean, that's the juice. That's the creative juice. But let's know it for what it is. When you've got expert pilots up there that are going, look, it was a craft, period. I'm not crazy. I wasn't drinking. No, that's what it was. Look, here's a picture. Okay, you're not to say anything about this ever, understand, or you'll go away permanently. Yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. Dismissed. That's how that goes. These guys and girls they're hardcore. They do what they're told. Or they wind up like that cat that helped, what's his name? Assange at WikiLeaks.
Bradley Manning.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might be
Oh,
you might wake up transferred to Chechnya or somewhere very strange and far away.
It's crazy. It really is. There's Brian, I really wasn't going to go here, but I think I will anyway, if it's okay with you.
It is.
I think people had better wake up to the reality of this existence here on planet Earth, or I think they're going to have their noses rubbed in it until they do get it. And I think that nose rubbing could be quite severe.
Explain.
And I'll just let it go at that. I'm not going to wax, Bible thumper or scripture quoter or any of that stuff, but I'm telling you, these stories have never changed. The only thing that's changed is the fashion and the weapons. That's pretty much it. And the speed of communication. But look, whatever is your fastest means of communication, whether it's a carrier pigeon or whether it's a runner or whatever it is, that's the speed it travels at. So your whole scenario will adjust to the speed of that information. Whether a horseman has to ride, well, he's got to ride 5 miles to go tell the general that there's a whole bunch of people right over yonder. Well, the whole timeline will adjust to accommodate whatever events are necessary in furtherance of whatever's going on, if this makes sense. So to go back to what you started this with, I think all this communication is actually hurting us. This fellow, Dr. George Hart, the Time Tracks guy, one of the two guys, him and Paul Garcia.
I heard him on Coast to Coast with you last week, right?
Yeah. He said he had a mentor at MIT, a professor there, that described information disease. And I really think it's true. And in fact, I think if it becomes acute, it could have the same effect on a human being as any other thing that we know of as a disease. It just makes people plumb crazy. I don't, to put it in simple Southern terms, people just can't handle but so much stress. When they get to a certain point, that's why you see these neurotic people. He's like, oh, that person's acting kind of neurotic because they're real short. It's like those people have been, in my opinion, and this is all it is, these people have been so traumatized over the years by various events in their lives that they're only going to let in just so much information. After that, they're going to shut it off, and they have to, because otherwise they'll, in the parlance of the ancient hippie, flip out. Not just freak out, flip out, meaning lose their minds.
It's their coping mechanism. People that have been abused and people that have gone through a lot of traumatic, and I've known people in my life that as you're saying this, I'm thinking of some of these people. They've gone through some really tough stuff, and they've built this coping mechanism around themselves. It works. They function in society, but they're off. They are always going to be off because their new software that's running their system there's a glitch in it. It's not quite right. It's not quite on straight. I think I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and it seems more so all the time. This information disease, it's enough to keep a person walking on the side of their head most of the day. So you just have to learn to filter it. You can't indulge in all those fantasies, which is really all they are. We're just running these scenarios of the worst thing that could possibly happen over and over again. It doesn't matter. We haven't been in control of our lives really from the beginning. We have limited control over ourselves, but no matter. I mean, I'm sure there's an exception here and there, but people lose their temper, they lose their patience, they experience all of those things that the Greeks did their plays about. Which is why we study Greek theater, by the way, because the stories never change. It's just the clothing and the weaponry, but all the human motivations, they're all there, still there.
Well, John, I had grandiose plans to split this up into about 4 different segments, but of course, when you have breaking news that the suspect's down, and after this long week of the manhunt, it's the show is going to be what the show's going to be, no matter how brilliant I think I am putting this together in my producer hat role. It just is what it is. So what I'm going to do, John, I'm going to pause for a couple of seconds here for a brief station identification break here on the TNAM radio network. When I come back, I want to talk with you. You mentioned this West Texas event and the fertilizer explosion that happened right after this Boston thing. I want to get back to this because the whole Monsanto connection, that's another thing, that's common among the people following us on Facebook and Twitter, and they're pushing the Monsanto and the genetically modified food angle. They're pushing the CISPA and the locking down of the information angle. So I want to come back and talk about that, and also, kind of bring up the Wag the Dog concept. It's got me thinking. I'll set it up on the other side. So when you come back, by the way, before I even take this break, I always do this for you because every time I talk to you, it reminds me that I need to get one. You do have a website. You have caravantomidnight.com. And by the way, thank you for continuing to push on the Fukushima story, because we're out here on the left coast. The water's splashing up on our sand now. We're breathing the air, and I'm not sure that we're even getting the right story. So can you take a second and tell everybody what's going on with your website, Caravan to Midnight?
Well, caravantomidnight.com is just a website I put together because the Fukushima thing I found to be very disturbing, and I tell the story the same way every time because this is what happened. I went to my gigantic garage and dug around until I found this relic. It works really well, but it's huge, and I just thought I want to keep it around. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's got to be something better. So I partnered with some Western Europeans who got together with some Eastern Europeans to start with. And this is before I met Vince Mazur, M-A-Z-U-R, MazurInstruments.com. He builds some very good equipment, and he's here in the United States. So on caravantomidnight.com, you have your choice of the preferred instrument, because it's American-made, and it's an extremely high-quality device. That's the Mazur Instruments detectors. And then we have the Russian models, too, and they're less expensive. You can put them in your pocket. The Mazur's a little bit bigger, but it does a lot more, a whole lot more. And it's not so sophisticated a person can't use it. They recently discovered contaminated flatware and all kinds of things, household items, in a shipping container in Canada. They sent it back. It was so hot.
Wow.
And then Vince was telling me about some jewelry. And the long and the short of it is that jewelry was hot enough to probably cause a problem in some people fairly quickly. Plus, it was a necklace, and so it's right by some glands that don't need to be contaminated. It's just like it's not a paranoia device. It's just that what hasn't happened yet that could happen. We just had a couple of bombs go off the Boston Marathon. We haven't had a radiological incident in a while, and I'm just thinking we might be due for one. And I'm thinking that now, whereas the reason I got into this caravantomidnight.com site was because of Fukushima, and that's going to be going on for the foreseeable future. They're 10 years away from cleaning that up, even beginning to clean it up. It's too hot. They can't clean it up. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I've heard your guests on Coast. I think you recently did, a 4-hour show or something about, just kind of revisiting Fukushima, and I think you had 4 different people on 1 hour each, and by the time it was done, it was just like, wow. it's so far out of sight, out of mind, you just kind of forget that an entire country basically melted down, and it's all, like you said, they're melting it down into different flatware and jewelry, and it could be in anything. At your farmer's market, it could be in the fish that you're eating, it could be in the jewelry you're buying. So anyway, that's one place that the audience can go check it out. It's caravantomidnight.com. You're always on Coast to Coast on Saturdays, except for the occasional switch over there. So make sure you guys stay connected with John. We're going to take a brief station identification break here on the New American Media. I'm Brian Engelman. This is Agree to Disagree. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the New American Media.